And now, What's My Line? Brought to you by Stop at Spray Deodorant. Poof, there goes perspiration. Poof Deodorant Body Powder, the body powder you spray. Finesse Shampoo, the new flowing cream shampoo. All in the first truly functional cosmetic containers, far easier to use. All created by Dr. Jules Montagnier, the famous cosmetic chemist. Time now to enjoy What's My Line?
And now let's meet our What's My Line panel of well-known personalities whose lines you already know. First, the popular columnist whose voice of Broadway appears in the New York Journal-American and papers coast to coast, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
Clever young humorist who stars in his own television show on Monday nights on another network, Mr. Steve Allen.
Thank you. And on my left, one of the lovely ladies of radio and television, whose right eye has just returned from a week in Miami. We're very happy to have it back with us this week, Arlene Francis.
All the better to wink at you with. And on my left, our favorite comedy writer who has written for all the great comedians, including Ken Murray, whose new show started tonight, our Pixie panelist, Hal Dimples Block.
Thank you. Ken did a swell show tonight. And on my left, one of the, well, I would say the greatest news commentator, the greatest master of ceremonies, and the greatest writer. He wrote this introduction, John Daly.
Too many superlatives couldn't be mine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's My Line, presented by Stopette. Once again tonight, we have some nice people who have come to visit us and brought with them their occupations. We think they're occupations which will give my friends on the panel some trouble. We also hope that they will give our guests a chance to carry home some prizes. We'll have a guest challenger, a famous guest challenger, before the panel a bit later in the program. But right now, it's time for the experts to meet our first challenger, whose job they've got to spot. So will you sign in, please, ma'am? Lila, Dell, Miller. Lila, Dell, Miller. Miss, is it?
Yes.
Miss Miller?
Miss?
Yes, Miss. This is a pretty dangerous status to have when you're this close to Mr. Block. Come over this way a bit further. That's right. Now, would you be good enough to tell us where you come from?
Columbus, Georgia.
Columbus, Georgia.
Well, shut my ever-loving mouth.
I will say this, that Georgia has a great tradition for peaches. I might say that I can understand the tradition now. And would you be good enough to walk down?
Got some pretty nice tomatoes there, too.
May I see your hands, please? Thank you.
All right, Miss Miller, will you come over here now and sit down next to me? And on the basis of your good, firm, clear signature, your good, firm, clear voice, and the brief acquaintance which the members of the panel have had with you, we give them at this point one free guess as to what your line may be, and we will begin the free guesses with Miss Kilgallen.
I think she plays the harp.
Plays the harp, Mr. Allen.
Well, she's from the South, and judging by her mink, I think maybe she raises sugar daddies.
Miss Francis.
Well, Miss Miller's bearing is very poised. I think she teaches diction.
Mr. Block.
Well, I don't know what she does, but if it takes two to tango, I'd like to be one of them.
Well, I'm afraid nobody has the right answer. We'll let our viewers at home have a further look at Miss Miller, and at the same time, we will tell them what her line is. But the panel will have to dig. And now, Miss Miller, the rules are very simple. Actually, every time you can give the panel a no answer, it'll cost them $5. We'll keep a record of it all up here. 10 of these no's, and the most important thing happens. You have won the game. We always give one last bit of help. Miss Miller is self-employed. With that, we will begin the general questioning with Miss Kilgallen.
Miss Miller, do you deal in services?
Yes.
Would both men and women be happy to have your services?
Yes.
Is there any product involved?
No.
1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Allen.
Do you deal ordinarily with one sex more than the other?
No.
2 down and 8 to go, Miss Francis.
Does your work have anything to do with instruction of any kind?
Yes.
Do you teach in classes of any kind?
No.
Small conference, please. Will you excuse us for about 2 minutes?
Anyone want to play bingo?
Whatever happened to old John?
He's become young John.
Please, go away.
I'd like to say a few words about Texas.
Miss Francis, would you be good enough to ask that question again to help us to determine whether we could be quite fair in giving you the no that we want to give you?
Well, now that I know there's some problem about it, John, I'll phrase it a different way. Does Miss Miller, by any chance, speak or address an audience of any kind?
Yes.
Mm-hmm, yes.
There'll be no more conferences.
Is there anything entertaining about what you do?
Sometimes.
Do they charge admission to see or hear you?
No.
That's 3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Block.
Is what you do educational at all?
Yes, I think we could describe it as educational. I mean, there are certainly many, many instances when somebody who was in attendance as a participant would certainly get educational value. So you go on, Mr. Block.
We all lost the question now.
Well, that's what I was hoping you'd do, actually.
Do people feel happier on account of what you do for them?
Yes.
Well, do you help their particular social life?
Yes.
Both of them?
Male
What do you mean by
female?
both of them? I only thought we were talking
Male
about
and
one.
female.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'll pass to Dorothy. She's an authority on that.
All right, Miss Kilgallen.
On what, males and females?
Well, who else is there?
Miss Miller, is there, by any chance, anything religious about what you do?
Yes.
Yes.
Could your speeches to this audience of men and women have something of a religious nature?
Yes.
Would they be called sermons rather than just plain lectures or entertainment?
Yes.
Or are you a preacher?
Yes.
I think we would have to accept that.
I'm sure you must be the prettiest one in Georgia or any place else.
I beg your pardon?
I think Miss Miller must be the prettiest one in Georgia or any place else.
I think we will have to agree with that. And she also
Where's the congregation?
in Columbus, Georgia. Oh, you're an evangelist. That's right. Actually, Miss Miller doesn't stay in one place. She moves about a good deal, but your home is in Columbus, Georgia. I must say that I thought this was going to give you a great deal more trouble than it did. I think perhaps you have the mean and the gentleness of your profession, and it gave you away to some degree. You didn't do too well with the prizes, but we do hope that you enjoyed your visit with us, because it was very nice having you with us on What's My Line.
Thank you.
And now, panel, let's see what we can do with another challenger. Would you be good enough to sign in, please, ma'am? Mildred Landwehr. Is that right? Is it Miss or Mrs.? Mrs. Landwehr, would you be good enough to tell us where you're from?
I'm from Trenton, New Jersey.
Trenton, New Jersey.
That's right.
Well, I think very probably the people who are sitting over there on the panel are all very familiar to you, but they would like to know you a bit better. So would you walk over in front of the panel, please? All right, now, Mrs. Landwehr, will you come over here and sit down next to me? And on the basis of your brief visit with the panel, as I think you probably know, we always give them one free guess as to what your line may be, and we will begin the free guesses with Miss Kilgallen.
I think she's an astrologer.
An astrologer, Mr. Allen.
Well, if the last lady was an evangelist, this lady must be a bubble dancer.
Miss Francis.
I think she makes crazy quilts.
Mr. Block.
I think she's cute.
That I think we'll agree with, but it isn't the answer we were looking for. We'll let our viewers at home have a further look at Mrs. Landwehr, and at the same time, we'll tell them what her line is. Well, now, Mrs. Landwehr, I think you know the rules. Every no answer, $5. 10 of these no's. We keep the record right up here. You've won the game. You all set? Will you come in just a bit closer? All right, the last bit of help. Mrs. Landwehr is self-employed. With that, we'll begin the general questioning with Steve Allen.
Mrs. Landwehr, do you deal in services?
Yes.
Do you perform these services such as they are for both sexes?
Yes.
Would it be possible for you to perform them for both sexes together?
Yes.
I see. Would it possibly make them happier?
Yes.
There's something kind of motherly about you. Would the performance of these duties possibly ever be applied to a young couple before they got married?
Yes.
Yes, surely.
Would it in any way serve to bring them closer together?
It could drive them together, yes.
Could the performance of your duties also bring strangers closer together?
Yes.
Get them together. Could you do anything for me?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that something could be done for you, yeah.
You seem very helpful. Is by any chance your work easier when the fellas are rich and the girls are good looking?
Wait a minute, do that again. Is it easier when the fellows are rich and the girls are good looking?
Uh-huh.
Well, I would, if Mrs. Landwehr will let me take this over for a moment, say that it's possible that the reception of her services, which is what you're talking about, might be better if the fellow were rich and the girl were good looking, yes.
Anything is better if the fellow's rich and the girl's...
That's the point I was making, Dorothy. Very good. Dorothy.
Do you deal in advice of any kind?
On a what?
In advice?
Oh, I thought you said in
No.
advice of any kind.
This is a bad time to bring that up.
Do you deal in advice of any kind? No. That would make it 1 down and 9 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you work in one place?
No.
That makes it 2 down and 8 to go, Mr. Block.
Then you usually travel around.
Very good, Mr. Block.
Well, I like to. Do you have any special talent in what you do?
Yes.
You need a special talent? In
Yes.
other words, anybody couldn't do what you do.
No.
Do you need any special instruction in what you do?
Yes.
Is your work by any chance entertaining?
Yes.
Now I'd like to know what I'm talking about. Do we have a little conference?
You may have 15 seconds for a conference.
See if she does her work in any sort of an arena or in an enclosure where people would be watching.
Do you have
ahead.
anything? Well, we're arena bound. Do you do anything in sort of an enclosure or an arena?
Sometimes.
Oh, this kid you can't pin down.
If you can, maybe she's a wrestler.
That's one way to make both ends meet. Do you have anything to do with music, by any chance?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Do you play a musical instrument?
Yes.
Do you play it with your mouth?
No.
That makes it 3 down and 7 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Now, is this musical instrument involved in your work?
Yes.
This isn't just a hobby that has nothing to do with it. Now, this propelling of young men and women together that you're able to do, is this physical as well as social? This isn't just an intellectual
Yes, we would
propelling.
say it's physical. I mean, the end product of the services which Mrs. Landwehr performs might well be the propulsion of one sex toward the another to the
Here we
general
go again.
satisfaction and goodwill of both.
On this instrument that you play, do you ever play hillbilly tunes?
Yes.
Such as would be used for square dancing?
Yes, sometimes.
Good. And this is, of course, understood that hillbilly tunes can be played by a concert of instruments.
Yes. Would you say that your work was on a more popular level than, let us say, a virtuoso who would play at Carnegie Hall?
Yes.
Do you usually play when people are doing some type of dancing or other energetic
Yes.
entertainment? Well, are they dancing?
Yes.
Do you use your fingers in playing?
Yes.
Do you by any chance play a violin?
No. 4 down and 6 to go. Mr. Allen.
Nice try.
You don't use your mouth, but you do use your fingers.
The fingers are involved, yes.
Are the feet involved?
Yes.
Are there any kind of strings in the instrument which you play?
Thank you. 5 down and 5 to go. Miss Francis.
Well, does Miss Landwehr play several instruments at once?
I think it could be described that way, couldn't it?
I mean, what I really meant was, is Miss Landwehr sort of a one-woman band kind of arrangement?
A one-woman band. That'll make it 6 down and 4 to go. We left the door open, Mr. Block, but you've got the right idea.
You play a lot of instruments at one time?
Oh, Hal.
Yes. Well,
10 seconds
I
for a
just
gun.
thought of something.
What did you think of it?
Like Virtue of Dorothy.
Well, if she plays with her feet and her hands, it has to be drums, percussion instruments, doesn't it? You know, like flute.
You know, I just got a strange thought. Maybe she plays the drums.
That's right. Well, Mrs. Landwehr, we gave him a bit of trouble.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Mrs. Landwehr is a jazz drummer.
Ah.
Well, that beats everything.
That beats everything. And she nearly beat you. You did very well with the prizes. And I must say that we did very well having you with us, because
Well, it
we
was
had a lot of
pleasure.
fun. Hope you did, too.
It was
Nice of
pleasure.
you to visit us in What's My Line. Good night. Off with you. And now we come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity. My friends on the panel would most certainly recognize our famous guest on sight. So, as usual, we have provided them with blindfolds. Are those blindfolds all in place, panel?
Yes, John.
Good. Will you come in, mystery challenger, and sign in, please?
I forgot you.
Panel, as you know, in the case of our mystery challenger, we always dispense with the usual preliminaries. We get right down to the general questioning, which we will begin with Miss Arlene Francis.
Well, we've already had Arthur Godfrey, so unless we're doing a repeat for the West Coast, this can't be he. Are you in the entertainment business?
No question.
Have you appeared in pictures? Are you male? Take a little one. What? Yes?
Maybe airmail.
Yes, the answer to that, Miss Arlene.
And you've appeared in television? And radio? Well, there's nothing very much left then. Would you be considered a comedian? Are you, would you consider yourself a leading man?
I would say that our guest is handsome enough to be a leading man and young enough to be a leading man and is very probably considered a leading.
But he doesn't consider himself a leading man?
I think probably he also considers himself a leading man.
Would I consider you a leading man? Well, are you primarily known as a comedian? Is that your forte? Or are you also a straight actor?
No, one question at a time.
All right.
now, Miss
Are you
Arlene.
primarily known as a comedian? Do you do anything besides act? I mean by that, do you play a musical instrument or sing? You do one of those things? Are you a singer?
One down and 9 to go. Mr. Block. Well, have you been on a television show in the last year? Happened to have. Have you ever had your own show in radio or television? Have you ever been featured in a picture? And this isn't your great racket? You know something? You should just stick to being a comedian. In addition to being a comedian, you do something else. Do you play an instrument? Oh! I bet you thought I knew what I was talking about. Is it by any chance a very popular instrument? Something that most people have in the home?
Well, to the degree that people have an interest in music, you might find this in a great many homes.
Is it possibly something with strings?
Strings, yes.
Is it the piano?
That would make it...
Well, pianos have strings.
2 down and 8 to go. Miss Kilgallen.
Have you ever appeared on the New York stage? Were you a comedian then, too? When you work as a comedian, are you usually in proximity to people who are known as stooges or supporting players, I suppose, more politely?
Well, are you in proximity to supporting players when you are performing as a comedian?
I mean that, is he that rather than a monologist?
Whatever became a ha-ha.
Did I get a yes on that?
You go on from there. Actually, I think, Miss Kilgallen, that we would have to admit that our guest is, on many occasions, a monologist, and on other occasions, you will find that he uses supporting players.
He seems to do everything. Do you have a regular radio program of your own? And do you use supporting players on that? Steve, I'll pass to you while I cogitate.
All right, Mr. Allen, let's see what you can do. We have about 2 minutes and a half to go.
While you're cogitating, why don't you think it over?
I'm going to try to.
Let's see. Does your wife ever work with you when you work? That's too bad. I'll have to speak to your agent about that. Do you by any chance ever work with your orchestra leader? I mean, is he a part of your entourage? Is your hair... Are you having a little trouble with your hair?
Is that properly a no answer? Okay, that's 3 down and 7 to go.
He's having no trouble with his hair. He has hair.
Looks grand.
Have you hair?
It is both full and handsome. Go on from there, Miss Preston.
Let me see now. Have you ever been on the road to anything in a picture?
That makes it 4 down and 6 to go, Mr. Block.
I'd like to find out what Steve was thinking of.
Now, we have only about 55 seconds to go, Mr. Block.
I'd like to, too.
Well, are you in New York in a vehicle right now?
No, he's on a stage in a theater. That's 5 down and 5 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Well, are you usually in California?
Are you usually in California?
Is that where you live? Well, if you work with your wife and you play a stringed instrument and you have hair, even if it isn't all your own, are you Jack Benny?
Jack Benny! All right! Thanks very much. Jeff, can you say hello to the family, please? Because I know they want to say hello to you. Thanks very much for coming to visit.
If I would have only asked if he was 39.
Said no. Could I ask just one question?
Why,
then
sure.
Do I get paid for tonight?
And now, in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give you a preview look at one of our guests whose line our panel is going to be asked to guess on next week's program. But first, here is something to remember. You again, this is John Daly saying good night, Dorothy.
Good night, Steve.
Good night, Arlene.
Good night, Hal.
Good night, Jack.
Oh, and good night, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for being with us on What's My Line?
This has been a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production in association with the CBS Television Network.